proclamation, if you will, of the true gospel of the kingdom of God to all of the world. So basically, the world, Christ said, would grow increasingly dangerous as his return nears. And it says it will be a time of great distress, he warned, and such as there has never been before since the beginning of the world and will never be again, if that time of troubles were not cut short. No living thing could survive, but for the sake of God's chosen, it will be cut short. Now, religious deception, this is what we're talking about, will continue to increase. He said, followed by dramatic heavenly signs. Okay, and these will be followed by a world transforming event. Okay, then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and then all of the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with great power and great glory. So Jesus' prophecy is actually an overview, if you will, of end time events. And there are many other prophecies, mostly in the book of Revelation, that fill in various details, if you will. Now, Satan will not relinquish his kingdom without a fight. I wouldn't expect anything less. As the time of Christ's return draws nearer and nearer, we can read this sobering warning, okay, again at Revelations 12:12. Okay, now many prophecies go on to detail a frenzy of destruction directed at God's church, at the people of Israel, at humanity as a whole, and at the returning, okay, of Jesus Christ. Now Satan's wrath is focused principally, okay, on those in the church, symbolically represented by a woman that we've talked about before in Revelation chapter 12. And it goes, and the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to make war with the rest of her offspring, who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. And that is verse 17. So religious persecution will again rear its ugly head at Satan's instigation, and that's Revelations 12:10. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake, warned Jesus. And then many will be offended, will betray one another, and will hate one another. At Matthew 24:9-10. So Mark preserves yet another chilling detail from Christ's prophecy about this promised persecution at Mark 13:12. Now brother will betray brother to death, and father his child, and children will rise up against parents and cause them to be put to death. So what are we seeing in the news? What are we hearing from people, in our own dealings with people? All of this is happening. If the Bible is not true, why is it happening? Why? Okay. So Revelation 6:9-11 further describes this period, a period of martyrdom, if you will. Okay. So we earlier read, and talked about that religious deception will increase as Christ's return draws near, and Satan will have a direct hand in the rise of a great leader who will play a pivotal role in a very massive, epic, end-time religious deception. See, this is where we're going with this. Satan is known for deception, okay? Religious deception, okay? So his hand is heavy on everything, including the corruption of the church and organized religion, aka Christianity. Now, the writing of events preceding Christ's return, Paul tells us the day will not come, unless the falling away comes first and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition. And we talked about this, the son of perdition, and this reference we know to be at 2 Thessalonians 2:3. Now this man opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God, or that is worship, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is what? God. So do we not see the characteristic here of going back to the rebellion in heaven? And Satan those angels that follow him, but Satan specifically wanting not to be like God. As some scriptures translate, he wants to be God. So those who are in accord with him follow that same type of, you see where I'm going? It doesn't change. They want to be God. There's only one God, and that's God. There's only one God, just like it's just one you. Okay, so how could such a person claim to be God and convince others to believe him? Now, Paul adds that the coming of the lawless one will be in accordance with the work of Satan displayed in all kinds of what he calls counterfeit miracles, signs and wonders, and in every sort of evil that deceives those who are perishing. Now, even now, like I talked about in some other stuff, even when I do more lighter stuff and read stuff like just with Miss Mary and the things that we see, like the last thing that me and Miss Mary did, okay, we talked about when we got a lot of rain, okay, and she went out to run errands, and it was all of this like residue, on the ground. Even in some parts it looked silver, a very unusual silver, like a residue, heavy in standing water, and it actually made her cough, okay, made her skin itchy. But people weren't looking at that, they were looking at her sneezing. So are we looking at the right things? No one's looking at what we need to be looking at. We're looking over there when all this other stuff is happening over here. Okay, so you're concerned about this older woman sneezing, but you're not actually looking at what she's looking at, which is probably maybe the cause of why she's sneezing and her skin is irritated, which is some weird chalky silver, I don't know what, from the sky, okay, that's falling down in the rain and just laying there on the ground. No one sees it. No one sees it. To me, that's deceived. Okay, eyes that cannot see and ears that cannot hear. Whoa, very prolific. He's very prolific. He's been doing it quite a long time. Okay, so it says these powerful miracles will convince many, but in reality they are the deceptive handiwork of Satan. But regrettably, this man's deception that we're talking about will take in millions of people, and in the cataclysmic, okay, or the catalyst that will mark the end of this age, many will fall victim to a very powerful delusion, okay, and this is found in verses 10 and 11, okay, and perish because they refuse to love the truth and so be saved. Now, I told you that even in just from, yet again, my own perspective as an imperfect human being in day to day, I noticed that people, when you told them things, they ask you a question, okay? It could be something very mundane, okay? I'm going to use my previous job. They hired a cleaning service to clean the building. Makes sense, right? Especially after the things with the pandemic made sense. Good choice. Okay, so they hired them. I don't know how they found them. And they proceeded for about maybe, I don't know, did they have a contract or an agreement for 2 to 3 months? Now, if I'm going to judge by the room that I worked in, my room and outside of my room was never clean. Was never clean. What I did notice was that inside of the cabinets, okay, where I stored the equipment, supplies, and so forth and so on, was moved around. Okay, not by myself, by someone else. And I remember my superiors, okay, supervisors, asking me about was my room clean? Was the room that I worked in clean? And to me, I appreciate them asking, but all that they needed to do was to actually look. Did it look clean?